In Hypixel Skyblock, Minecraft's largest minigame, there are a lot of ways to make coins. From mining crystals to defeating dragons to delving into deep dungeons. But farming is by far the easiest method, since all you have to do is hold down a few buttons while earning a lot of money. So for 7 months, I tried designing the best farm in the entire game. And on my way, I faced hardship, made some powerful friendships, and discovered some crazy things. I mean, this is a story you do not want to miss. And to begin, let's go back to February the 21st, 2023, which is the day I returned to Skyblock after a 2-year-long break. The game had changed a lot, but what really caught my attention was the garden, which is kind of like a separate private island where you can build farms and, well, farm. And back then, the average farms were pretty basic, and you farm them by just going back and forth on the rows. And this might seem pretty good, but you do not realize how tedious this farm is. I mean, the amount of effort it takes to switch a whole 2 keys at the end of each row. Absolutely unacceptable. I've had enough, and besides, think of the potatoes you'd lose. Basically, I was getting tired of having to switch the direction I'm going at after each row, because, you know, that's effort. So, like a normal person, I decided to assemble a farm designing team and spend all my time designing something much better. And surprisingly, only after a day or so, we found a very strong candidate. Launchpads are a custom block made by the admins which have the ability to boost you forward at insanely high speeds. And it turns out that we could actually use these to hyper boost ourselves across the lane switch at the end of every row like so, which not only means we don't need to press W since the launchpad makes us move forward, but during a lane switch is the only time in the entire farm where you aren't breaking anything. So by making it go by faster, we actually end up harvesting more crops. But although that sounds very nice, we ran into a big problem. Yeah, okay, watch. Okay. This is called a lagback, and it can happen at complete random whenever you step on a launchpad, and I think you can tell why that might be an issue. So naturally, for days we tried to solve it, which kind of led to us going a bit insane and, well, doing some questionable things. Okay, wait, what if we put a launchpad before the first launchpad, maybe like one block behind, and then it can like relieve itself.
What?
Yeah, okay. At this point, half our group had already logged off, and we were kind of going insane. I mean, we were hopeless. You must understand my situation. I mean, my ideas were not that unreasonable. I've spent the last 3 days of my life looking at a slime block. Yeah, I think it's safe to say I was kind of going insane, which is when I suddenly had a wild idea to try heads. You see, heads are considerably smaller than normal blocks, and for some reason, by placing one directly before the launchpad, it actually made it impossible to lag back. And I still have no idea how or why this was possible, but I was certainly very happy. So very quickly, we updated our farms to include launchpads. Though, unbeknownst to us at the time, another farm designer called TB33 had discovered something revolutionary. Teleport pads have the ability to, well, teleport you from teleport pad A to teleport pad B, and what TB33 had discovered is that if you place teleport pad A at the end of a lane and teleport pad B at the start of the next lane, you can basically skip this entire key switching process and, well, just teleport to the next lane. And this was massive since it meant that you never actually had to change any keys on your keyboard because you were always moving in the same direction. So while TB33 was enjoying his new teleport pad farm, we were left clueless, thinking that the launchpad strat was the best in the world, which was the case for about 3 more weeks until a farmer in our team named Zips also discovered teleport pads. And quickly we changed our farms, but at that point it was already too late. You see, all of this teleport pad and launchpad commotion, not just from us, but also from other communities who had discovered this exploit, well, all of it kind of alerted the admins, and the admins, to say the least, were not very happy. And so on May the 22nd, both TP and launchpads were removed from the garden, which meant the weeks of tedious grinding and testing, all of the times we nearly went insane for a farm we had worked so hard to design, was all for nothing. And so slowly, our group lost motivation, and everyone except me eventually quit Skyblock. Okay, Maybe it was because I had actual lives to live instead of playing a blog game, but regardless, from that point onward, I vowed to make them proud and design the best farm Skyblock had ever seen, but it certainly wouldn't come easy as TB33 had the same goal in his mind. Now, for a while after the nerf, the concept of no key switch farms was straight up deemed impossible, and during this 2 or so month period, I actually designed the most efficient farm in the entire game. You see, what makes a farm good is a number we call efficiency. Basically, we want our farms to be 100% efficient at all times. However, the problem with regular farms is that at the end of rows, you actually stop farming because, well, you have to move forward to the next lane. But since you stop farming, your efficiency goes down from 100%. But what I had discovered is that by tilting your head from 0 to 45 degrees, you can actually farm during the lane switch itself, meaning your efficiency will always be 100, though despite this being very efficient, it required a lot of key switches, which was well the opposite of my and TB33's end goal, to create a farm that can maintain 100% efficiency without ever switching any keys. Now, both of us had tried a lot of different ideas, but for a while we couldn't even make a no key switch farm that worked, let alone one with 100% efficiency. That is, of course, until a farmer named Manuel discovered beds. You see, in Skyblock, beds have a unique ability where if you left-click them, your spawn is set on the bed. And Manuel's idea was that by clicking a bed at the start of a lane, farming the crops, then walking into the void and dying, you would actually respawn on the bed you clicked. And this would redirect you to a different lane, where you can repeat the same process, so clicking the bed, falling into the void and dying, until this top lane regrows. Then you can just use water and ladders to return to the very start of the farm, meaning it was a fully loopable farm that required no key switches. But despite being a cool idea, it had a massive problem. Sure, you don't have to switch any keys, but you're falling into the void for about 3 to 5 seconds after every lane. And to make things worse, upon respawning, you spend up to 20 seconds rerouting yourself to the next lane, and all this downtime, where you aren't farming any crops, was drastically going to damage your efficiency, which using this farm was around 65% instead of the 100 we wanted. And so bed farms, despite being kind of cool, were rejected by the community. So is that the end? Well, not exactly. You see, while all of this commotion was going on, a farmer named HarpenW was tirelessly working on designing a more efficient bed farm, and he did this by fixing one issue. In Manuel's design, the problem was that you took ages to get pushed to the next lane, but with this newer layout you would drop down instantly and start farming without any delay. There was still the problem of the last lane being really bad, but okay, let's not talk about that for the time being. Now, conveniently, during the same time, I'd also been experimenting with bed farms. However, instead of walking into the void to lane switch, I actually stole one of TB33's inventions, which was to drown myself instead. And with a bit of second grade maths, I timed it perfectly so I would drown at the very end of each row, meaning I can avoid wasting precious efficiency walking into the void. And although that was cool and all, at this point both Harpen and I were somewhat out of ideas, while TB33 on the other hand was claiming to have a new breakthrough resulting in a higher efficiency farm every single day. So when HarpenW reached out to me to share our ideas, and me knowing this was my only hope of beating TB33 in the race, I quickly accepted, and immediately we got to work, combining both Harpen's bet strategy and the drown system, which within a few days became what we thought the most efficient no-key switch farm up to date. And although this farm was good, it had one big issue, which was, well, you guessed it, TB33. Now, practically for the entire race, his designs were kept in complete secret. I mean, even to this day, I've never actually seen any of his farms. Though from the vague clues and messages he had been sending us, we knew it was something to do with switching pets to give him different speeds that he used to go into separate lanes, which gets confusing really quick, but okay, whatever. The important part was that although our farms had an efficiency of 92%, which was really good, his was all the way at 96%. And this forced us to make an alarming decision. The bet farm was really good, but at the end of the day, you will always lose efficiency no matter what, since you have to spend time going back to the start of the farm. which meant that if we really wanted to design the first 100% efficiency farm, we had to find a new design, and fast. But luckily for us, TB33 might just be our solution. Now, for a while, he'd been going around claiming that he's built a really good 2-key cocoa bean farm. If I'm honest, we didn't really care that much about cocoa beans, seeing as our farms were more for useful crops like wheat. But our curiosity got the best of us, and we began asking questions, a lot of them, for about 3 days straight. Now, prior to this, we had created a plan as to how we should engage in conversation with TB33, and I might have spent about 10 hours studying interrogation psychology for this very moment. I also probably lost a few friends, because it turns out practicing confrontational interrogation techniques on people won't make them like you.
Listen, I know you committed the crime, okay?
Dude, I'm losing my mind here. Can you just shut up?
Now, you might argue that was slight overkill. No, it was definitely worth it, because sure enough, the plan actually worked, and TB33 continued giving us snippets of information. So slowly, we mapped out an entire investigation board consisting of everything he had ever said. We also stalked, analyzed every single message he had sent in every Discord server he was in, and after a while, we had come to 2 big conclusions. The first being that, despite our psychology tricks, he wouldn't really give us any direct answers. And if we tried any direct questions, his answer would always be, "There is a magic trick," which earned him the name The Magician. But also, it wasn't really helpful. What am I supposed to do with "there is a magic trick"? However, the second conclusion was very valuable, and it consisted of 3 words: changing, spawn, obstruction. Although being kind of mysterious, it gave us a really good idea. You see, in Skyblock, if you set your spawn point, then place blocks on top of it after you die, either to the void or to drowning, instead of spawning inside of the blocks and suffocating, you actually spawn on top of the blocks. And you get a little message in chat explaining what happened. But if you think about it, this is a way to change your spawn point. In theory, we could spawn in, begin farming, and if we somehow managed to fill in the air where we spawned, when we respawn, we could start farming a different lane thanks to spawn obstruction. And from what we understand, TB had discovered a way to do this using some sort of exploit, which he called the magic trick, but it only works for cocoa beans. So the question remains, how are we going to do this for more useful crops, like for example wheat? The obvious answer would be to use some sort of piston contraption that pushes the blocks, but unfortunately the admins disabled all redstone from working in Skyblock, or well, at least they tried. About a month ago, Harpin and I tested every possible redstone combination, and we found a few cool features. Definitely not bugs, game features. Like for example, you can freeze water in place for 5 seconds using the Frostwalker enchantment, and when it unfreezes, it just gets stuck in place for some reason. I don't know. However, if we hook this water up to a little contraption we had made, we can actually make the water reflow by stepping over this string, which means we can automatically freeze and then unfreeze water. Which would be kind of useless, but what if I told you that water actually counts as a block that can obstruct you? And this is amazing for us, because it means we can place 5 streams of water on top of one another and change our spawn points by activating and deactivating the streams. And so, the game was on. Now, admittedly, our first prototypes were a bit... there was a reason we named it the Sewage System 1.0. But eventually we refined our ideas and made a farm that looked like this. And with a bit of modding, version switching and tweaking that would be way too complicated to explain, we had a fully working design. And also the first 100% efficiency 2-key farm, meaning we had won the race. If you enjoyed, watch this video to see another crazy farm.